Welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. We'll learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professional. When we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time, and just when you think you've made it, you might have to scrap it all and start from scratch. Sometimes that's just the way it goes, and we ride the tide. I am your host, Clary Johnson, and joined here today by a very special person who is near and dear to my heart. It's rare, y'all, to find friends that transcend borders and times. Her friendship has helped me survive some of my darkest days. And if you have a friend like that, I'm telling you to reach out to them right now and tell them you love them. Today, we're going to get vulnerable. We're talking about our inner child and unlearning beliefs that no longer serve us and replacing those beliefs with new skills and ways of thinking as we advance into adulthood. The big, hairy question we're asking today is, what role does our inner child play in our ability to be successful as young professionals? But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds, and in between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for clues along the way, and the audience can help out by also asking for clues. So please join me in welcoming Sandy.
Hi.
Sandy, I am so honored to have you join us tonight. First, I want to say I love you.
Oh, I love you.
And I'm deeply appreciative of our friendship. I am truly blessed that our dogs connected and then we connected. And we talk a lot about this, about how animals are spiritual pathways. I love the way that you phrase that so perfectly. And they have the power to really attract people and emotional resources into our lives. And right now, we're in two different time zones. So at this moment, you're in Northern California, which is my old stomping grounds, and I'm here in Chicago. And today, we're going to be talking about the role our inner child plays in our ability to be successful as young professionals. I love this topic because when we really think about it, many of the goals we have now were once dreams of those little girls and boys. And we're going to find out what you wanted to be when you were a child. Today, you're a marriage and family therapist. So let's just get started with our most common interview question. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, my name is Sandy. Well, technically I'm Sandra, but that's my work name. My name is Sandy. I am born and raised in San Diego, but now I live in the Bay Area. Um, you said about my background?
Mhm.
Okay. So both my parents are immigrants from Mexico. Um, and I grew up in a really multicultural community. There was a little bit of everything. Um, but I've always felt, naturally a lot closer to my community, like the Latino community. And I've always felt that it was something that I wanted to pursue and like supporting my community, especially San Diego being a border city and just wanting to help. And I think for me in my career, or choosing my career, it came to this quote that I don't know, a lot of people have heard it, a lot of people haven't, but like, be the person that you needed when you were little. And someone that I needed when I was little was definitely a counselor, therapist, whatever have you. Um, So went, I started college in community college. Then I went and transferred to a big state university, San Diego State, naturally, since I was there. And I felt like I kind of got lost in a big state school. Felt that I didn't build those connections with my professors like I did in community college. So I pursued graduate school at a private school that offered really small classroom sizes, which was expensive. Um, but I really feel like it was very, very, very worth it. So I got my master's at Palo Alto University here in the Bay Area, and I've kind of just stayed put since I moved here. And yeah, that's a little bit about me and, kind of how I got to where I got.
I love that story. And the thing I want to put the pin in is to be the person you wanted to be when you were little, when you were younger. Because whenever I talk about my mission, I talk about my friend who told me that story
Yeah,
about being the person that I needed when I was little. And
yeah.
when I think about my mission of really helping young professionals through what I call the gap. So that's this moment, that's the period between when you graduate from college and you land your first, full-time gig, like your really first career accelerating opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many emotions within that gap. There's anxiety, there's fear, there's
Mm-hmm.
depression, there's, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And oh my goodness, did I choose the right path? And oh my goodness, how am I going to pay off these loans and these credit cards that I've amassed? And so I really want to serve as a guide through that period to show people, to show young professionals, there is a light at the end of this. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the light that you choose, and you can create that. And so to help them to create that outcome. And I think about why I do that, and it's because that's what I felt I needed. I I was in a space where I felt very lost in my career, and I'm a first generation college student, so I didn't really have, that sounding board of someone who had already been there and done that, who could,
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey, Clary, these are the things that you're doing right. Hey, Clary, here are some things that I think maybe you want to try." Or it's someone to really take me under their wing and open up doors for me. And while there were people along my path, there were lights along my path. I
Mm-hmm.
really, what I really wanted was someone to really just embrace me and say, "It's gonna be okay." Right? Like that inner child. So that is so profound for me to hear you say that, and then to think about kind of where you are right now as a marriage and family therapist and your work with children, and how you've really brought that full circle, and how you're able to really pinpoint and identify that time in your life when you made the decision of, I want to do something that's going to be meaningful for my community, but also something I want to solve a problem that I
Mm-hmm.
had, or a challenge that I faced when I was younger. So I love that.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate to feeling really lost, even once you're already in school. Like, I got my bachelor's in psychology, but I didn't really know what that meant, although I was in the motions of it and getting good grades and, being like successful. I still didn't exactly know what that meant for me.
Mhm.
And that phrase being be the person that you needed when you were younger, like it's been something that's been in like my knowledge bank, but I didn't really bring it to the surface and really reflect on it until I would say like I was already like well into my major and I had no idea, truly no idea what I wanted to do after. And once I graduated, and I remember I spent like 30 days exactly meditating. I meditated every day at lunchtime at the same time. And I was just so desperate to like figure out like my path. And I know it's not linear like that for other people, but I had interned at different places. I've had different jobs, and I knew I wanted to like help, but I still had no idea like in what way. And during one of those like meditation sessions, like it kind of came to me, and I was like counselor, therapist. I was like, that's it. It was kind of a like a I don't want to sound cheesy, but it was almost like a cosmic signal that I like received, like a cosmic message. And I think because I was just like really digging deep, like diving deep every day at lunchtime to figure out what it is I needed for my life.
Hmm. And that aha moment for you came in a moment of stillness. And this is
Mhm.
something we've talked about before on this series, as well as we've talked about the power of meditation and
Yes.
finding that stillness in those moments that feel like really chaotic, and you're feeling all of these chaotic emotions, and like what you described as this desperation to find my path and what my purpose and what I'm going to do. And it's in those moments of stillness when you hear, you know you hear the direction, right?
Mhm.
And so I love that. So let's pause here,
Mhm.
and we are going to guess where the other person is. I'm really excited about this
Me too.
because I'll say why I'm excited about this. Because the instruction that I always give to guests that come on this show is you can choose anywhere on earth, land, or sea, or even outer space. And you would be the person to choose outer space. Well, so that's going to be my question. First of all, is this a place? Is this an outer space?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because it does look like a little old, it could be under the sea, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's this angelic light that's just kind of hitting you perfectly from the side. So I just wanted to make sure. So we are in outer space.
We're in outer
Um,
space.
okay, so I'm definitely gonna have to Google this. But is this one of the Kepler planets? Okay, I'm just gonna stop there. Okay, I'm gonna stop there because there are a lot of Kepler planets out
There are.
there.
There are.
So we had to narrow it down, though. Okay, we had to narrow it. You knew when you know me. Okay, when we're talking about this cosmic, like you see the shirt. Okay, we
I,
came prepared.
I know.
All right. Okay, so now it's your turn.
Okay. Is this a European?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Um, is this I want to say it's in between like Italy or Denmark.
And you mean it's spatially
Or
located
or
within
sorry,
them,
like
or
I'm
either
like
or?
either or.
Okay, so it is not Italy, it is not Denmark. I'm actually glad it's not Italy because I almost chose Italy for this one. But I will give you a clue. How about that?
Okay.
Cool. Okay, so let's see. The re Okay, so this place has this place. Okay, so here, 1/3 of this country is under sea level.
Girl, me and geography are not friends.
Well, it's European,
Yes. Okay.
and you also know that 1/3 of this European place is below sea level.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're going to pause here
Okay.
and we're going to move to our next question. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so tell us a little bit more about what you do now, and then give us a glimpse of what your typical day to day looks like.
Okay, so what I do now isn't what I thought I would be doing while I was in grad school, because I went to grad school to become a therapist. And I do therapy, but I also do. Oh, hello,
Hey,
Deanna.
Deanna.
I do a mix. So I do outpatient therapy, but I also am a intensive care coordinator, which is basically like a clinical case manager. So not a social worker for sure. Um, but I do a lot of resourcing. I provide a lot of that clinical support while resourcing for families, and um, I provide that, like, yeah, like that emotional support. So a day for me, well, every day is different. Um, I would say on there's like a regular day and then there's like a chaotic day. So a regular day would be, you know, I wake up, I check my emails, I check in with families that, I do like monthly check-ins or sometimes weekly check-ins, and just kind of see um how things are going. Oh, I should explain. Sorry, I have ADHD, so I'm kind of all over the place. Um so I work at a nonprofit called Rebecca's Children's Services, and we work with primarily with foster youth, but we also receive referrals from hospitals. People can self refer through a call center, which that's something I'm really, really fond about in my county of Santa Clara County. There's like a generic number that anybody can call, and you call, you just say, hey, I want to see a therapist for this, or I want services for this. And then they screen you and they send the referral. I feel like a lot of counties lack, and it's just a very, very, very easy way to get connected. So at Rebecca's, we have just, a variety of different clientele. We have clients with suicidal ideation, clients with anxiety, some OCD. Um, there is a wave of eating disorder going on right now. I feel that we're coming out of the wave of anxiety
Hmm.
and we're stepping into a wave of eating disorder, and that has a lot to do with social media, virtual school, a lot of that. Um, so a day for me, like a regular day, would be, I wake up, I check my emails, I check in with families. I have maybe 3 or 4 sessions per day. And those sessions range from an hour to 2 hours. It all depends on what the need is. Me as a coordinator, my schedule is much more flexible than a full time therapist that has traditional like 50-minute sessions, 10-minute break, 50-minute sessions, 10-minute break. I really like my job because I have a lot more flexibility and I'm out in the community more. Um, Now, on a chaotic day, I would be at home working on progress notes, just minding my own business. And then there would be some kind of crisis. Like I would get a call from like a client, and they would express, maybe they're having like suicidal ideation, or I would get a call from one of my team members and they would let me know. And me as the lead on each team, um, I would be responsible for going out and creating like a safety plan, assessing for like higher level need of care or not, checking in with like my higher ups if this person needs to be 5150. 5150 is just a like code for someone that is going to harm themselves. They're at risk of harming themselves, and they need to be detained or further assessed, you know, to see. And that's when you would be a client would be sent to like a psych hospital for an undetermined amount of hours or days or weeks, depends. And so yeah, those that's an average day for me, and then that's a chaotic day for me. Well, not chaotic, but you know, every day is an adventure in my job. I never know what's gonna happen. I never know what someone needs. You know, I can have my day scheduled and organized, and then there is a crisis that happens, and I have to that takes precedent.
And what I find so potent about the way that you described what you do is that there are a lot of heavy emotions and a lot of really serious, right, um, situations that you're responding to. And so hearing that tells me a lot about who you are. I know you. I don't know everything about you, but I think I know you pretty well enough to say that you're very much emotionally intelligent, empathic. You are very responsible. It sounds like you have to be someone that people can rely on to be able to do the job
Yes.
that you do,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Um, and I've seen you working so hard. I remember you're on night calls and you literally stay up and any they can call you at any point during the
Mhm.
night, and so you have to be ready to respond. And I believe that's so impressive, but also you have to have some level of I believe you have to have some level of feeling of purpose to be able to do that job well, because it sounds very difficult. It's a hard job, right? Not just because you're up in the middle of the night potentially, but also because you're dealing with the weight of so many
Mhm.
emotions, trauma, right? And you're in there in the trenches and you're like, "Hey,
Mhm.
I'm here right alongside you. I'm here with you to help you through this hard time, to help you through to bring you out on the other side." And so it just I think one thing that I stress to young professionals whenever they're choosing a job or a career path is really choose something that you feel connected to, like
Mhm.
choose something that is meaningful for you, because there are going to be some times in those jobs there are going to be things that you don't want to do. Right,
Mhm.
there are going to be aspects of that role that are going to be very difficult, and if there's not something else that's driving you to continue, if there's not something else that's sparking that flame and that fire inside of
Mhm.
you to keep going, you'll find yourself in a place where you're not enjoying what you're doing, and you're carrying that back home, right? And
Mhm.
so now your life feels like in this space of disarray because you're not doing anything that you're passionate about. On top of that, you're dealing with the challenges of a job or a career that doesn't feel meaningful to you. And so now you're questioning yourself and am I doing things right? Did I do something wrong?
Mhm.
Um, what is my purpose, right? And then those kinds of questions can lead us down another path. So I commend you, and I think thank you for your service and your work because it's so important. And I think not enough people give themselves the permission to be vulnerable and to seek help. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
Okay.
I oh, I wanted
Go ahead.
to I
Mhm.
wanted to like respond um and say like I would say yes on a good day, I feel that I have really found like my purpose and my meaning and like what I'm supposed to do. But that doesn't mean that I don't experience severe imposter syndrome
Mm,
on like a lot of the time, like a lot. Like like today's a good day and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, like I went to a really good school, been trained amazing, I've been at my job for a few years, like I really feel like competent and good, and I can like any crisis that happens, like I'll handle it, and I'm gonna, you know, like I don't need validation, from like let's say like a manager to be like, you did a great job. And just because I have that, maybe like a lot of the time, doesn't mean that I don't experience a lot of imposter syndrome. And that's really common in my field, and I would say that that may happen a lot. I'm not sure for other fields. I'm the most knowledgeable in mine, but imposter syndrome is something very natural, and very common in a lot of fields, and um, it's you have to like really look at the good days and like really let yourself feel like all those really good feelings, because those are the moments that get you through the days where you really don't feel like you're doing a very good job.
mm. That those are words of wisdom. Because even now, I mean, I also experience imposter syndrome, right? And it does fluctuate, right? That's why we were talking about kind of riding the tide. There are going to be
Yeah,
days when you feel powerful and empowered and strong and like on top of the world and like you can conquer anything, and then there are going to be days when you question everything.
everything.
And then Deanna is here. She's saying, I experienced it too, even as a seasoned CPA. And it's
Absolutely.
and it's the season part that gets me, right? Like
Uh-huh.
we've been doing this for a while, right? Like we've put in the work, like you were saying. We've been to a good schools, we have great training, we've serviced plenty of clients. So why do we still feel this feeling of am I not enough? Right?
Mhm.
And I think it's a part of the growing process, and we can never stop learning and growing.
Mhm.
And I think when we give ourselves permission to say, hey, I don't know it all, and that's okay, then we can feel more comfortable in those
Mhm.
spaces where the imposter syndrome creeps up, because the imposter syndrome is saying, hmm, like, are you really qualified? And I can say, yes, I'm qualified. I have 2 degrees, but that doesn't mean I know everything. And I give myself permission to go and read a book, or I give myself permission
Mhm.
to go and take a class, or I
Yeah.
give myself permission to not always get it right.
Mhm.
And I think when we give ourselves that permission, then we can relieve ourselves of so much of that anxiety that we were talking about. So we're going to pause here and we're gonna get back into it. Okay, so you're on a Kepler planet.
Mhm.
Um and now I have to go to the Googles because I have what
Okay.
Kepler. Okay, I have another question. I have another question.
Okay.
Is this planet the most similar to Earth?
It could be.
Is this that Kepler planet? It could be. Do you know? Are you
I
Googling it?
do. Um, okay. There is a very, oh, you know what? A really good, if you know your Keplers, then if I were to say mushroom,
Oh.
would that help you?
I don't know but I will take the clue. I will take the clue. By the way, there are more than 2,000 Kepler planets. 26 more than 2,600
There,
$2,600. Oh my
there's
goodness.
a lot of
More than
Kepler.
2,600 Kepler planets.
26. I did not know that.
Do we have time to get through all of them?
I don't think so.
Okay, I
So there's one Kepler that I know really well because I saw a whole documentary on it.
Okay, so there's a documentary about this Kepler planet.
Yes.
That's helpful. My next question, by the way, is going to be I'm going to ask you some numbers. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going
Okay.
to try to narrow it down. All
Okay.
right. So it is your turn. So we're in Europe. We've confirmed that,
Uh-huh.
but not in Spain.
Not in Spain. Okay, we're in Europe. Not in Spain, not in Italy.
And one third of this country is under sea level.
I'm not versed on my European countries' sea level levels. But I don't know. Croatia?
We are not in Croatia. I'll give you another clue.
Okay.
This country was the first country to legalize same sex marriage.
Oh,
Oh no, no. Save
oh,
it. You gotta say.
okay.
Do you think you know what it is?
I
All right, we're gonna hop into our next question.
okay. Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna read a statistic to you. I want to get your reaction to this.
Okay.
So in 2019, the Harris Poll and Lego Group partnered up to ask 3,000 kids what they wanted to be when they grow up. The results surprised me, okay? 11% said they wanted to be an astronaut, 19% said they wanted to be a musician, 23% said they wanted to be a professional athlete, 26% want to be a teacher, and 29% wanted to be a YouTuber.
I am not surprised by the YouTuber.
Oh, by the way, Deanna guessed Sweden. So, Deanna, we are not in Sweden.
Oh.
Where is Sweden? In let me see. Where is
I mean,
Sweden?
I've been saying that I want to get like a really nice map, like world map in my
Mhm.
house, just to like, you know, have to look at.
Do it.
Get inspired to travel more.
I love globes. I think they're so cool.
Yeah, they are very underrated home decor.
All right. So, Deanna, it looks like we're about a 23-hour travel away from Sweden, and we cross a few different water channels. So, that's your clue.
Okay.
Okay. So, what's your reaction to the 29% of children in this study? So there were 3,000 children that they interviewed.
Hmm.
The majority of them said they wanted to be a YouTuber. What's your reaction to that?
As someone that works with kids, it's not surprising. Um, Kids spend a lot of their time online, and when they're not online, they spend a lot of time wanting to be online.
Mhm.
So it's only natural, that they want to be like the people that they look at online. A lot of the kids that I work with, have their like favorite YouTubers. Um, a lot of YouTubers are very vocal about like their income and like, oh, I paid this for my parents. I did this, you know what I mean? So I think it comes from like a place of like just I mean, monkey see, monkey do,
Mhm.
you desire so much to watch these videos when you're not watching them. You just want to be watching them. Kids could spend all day on YouTube if their parents allowed them to. I mean, I'd be on my phone all day also if I didn't have a job. Like it's so addicting. Like, you know.
It's true. And I think about how much the world has changed, right? Since I was a kid, everyone was saying, "Go be a doctor, be a lawyer, be like those
Mhm.
are the things that you were praised
Yeah.
on." And social media has definitely, and you were talking about this a little bit earlier, has definitely changed. the primary influencer for children for our
Mhm.
generations.
Yeah.
Um, and so I thought that was just an interesting statistic, but it didn't bother me, you
Yeah.
know, because I see it as I would be curious to know why. I think that would be more helpful. Is to, well, why from a child's perspective, why do they want to be a YouTuber, right? And I think you
Mm.
so eloquently stated a lot of the possibilities there. But I also see it as people they want to create something, right? Versus
Yeah.
fitting into the mold of
Yeah.
what society expects of them. And I think that's pretty cool, actually, right?
Mhm.
To say,
Yeah.
hey, I want to create something. Like, I want to have my own message and I want to, have my own platform and I want to have my own tribe and my own community. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that are very appealing to like being an online persona, getting to travel, getting free things. I think it's like a high stimulating career,
Mm.
and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
And then, of course, there is a dark side, right?
Oh yeah.
Instagram influencers, all you see are the positive, you know, good things. And so then you judge yourself based on what you see other people doing and how you perceive their lives to be.
Oh yeah.
So there is a danger there, but I thought that was really interesting.
Absolutely.
So my follow up question to that is, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Um, I think I wanted to be a vet, like a lot of kids. You know, I had a pet dog and I was obsessed with him. He was my bestie. So I uh I was so basic. I just wanted to be a vet for a long time. And that still doesn't rule out me following through with a career with animals maybe later in life. Like I haven't I mean I've ruled out being a vet, but I would like to like do something with animals like in my next career.
The way I describe you is I describe you as a healer.
Oh.
So I remember when I was leaving California and I gave you all of my plants, my 20,000 plants, and you've nurtured those plants, right? Since several years
Mhm.
ago, you have a dog, you have a lizard, right? Like,
Yeah.
I see you as someone who really you enjoy nurturing. And so I think at the core of that, of wanting to be a vet, I think that's still true for you, right?
Yeah.
Is this affinity that you have with nature and this connection that you have and this understanding this and this kind of this cosmic ability to heal and to nurture and to grow. And I think that's really amazing. When I was a kid, I wanted a lot of things. I wanted to be a surgeon, a brain surgeon at one point.
Okay.
Wanted to be what else? I wanted to be a pediatrician. I think that I wanted to be a pediatrician for a long time. Um, and those are the two main things that I can remember wanting for my life, and obviously neither of those became
But
a
but I would relate it in the same way that you just related. You
okay,
know, for me, is like both those are helping fields.
true.
And that's what you're doing now, is you have such a passion for helping people find their own career.
Yeah. Thanks, Sandy.
Yes.
All right, cool. Okay, so let's guess. All right, so I said we're gonna narrow it down by numbers.
Okay.
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 Um, so I'm not sure actually how the Kepler planets are numbered, what the numbering system is.
I'm not sure either. I just know that some of them have like a letter at the end.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I can guess. Okay. Can you hear me Googling furiously? Okay. Okay, so I'll guess the letter.
Okay.
Okay. So is the letter Does is the last letter of this number, does it end in B?
Yes.
Oh, got it on the first try. Okay. So we're dealing with a Kepler something B. All right.
Yeah.
Can you give me another clue about this place?
Okay. Um, I told you mushrooms.
You did.
I did. I'm gonna say another. Oh, okay. It was discovered in the 2000s.
Oh,
Like,
so this
like
is more recent.
yes, in
Okay.
the 2000 and forward.
Okay. I know what my next question is going to be for you.
Okay.
All right, but it is your turn officially.
Okay. Okay. What language is spoken
Oh,
in
that
European place?
that's a great question. Dutch is the language here.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Do I guess now?
Yeah.
Uh, where do they speak Dutch? Netherlands?
Yes. Wow, I had so many more good juicy clues to give you.
Oh, sorry.
So I'll give you some clues. Well,
Okay.
I'll tell you some cool facts about
Oh, yeah, yes,
Netherlands.
yes. That's good.
So there are over 1,000 windmills in the Netherlands.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. Apparently carrots are orange because of the Netherlands.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Because of they did some clever breeding. Because originally carrots were white, purple, and pale yellow, which
Yeah,
there are still carrots that color,
yeah.
but they did some breeding to make carrots orange. That's kind of cool.
Very cool.
The Dutch own more bicycles than any other country in the world. Um, let's see what else. There was another really cool. There are over 1,200 bridges in the Netherlands.
Wow.
And the Netherlands is the world's biggest flower exporter. So it's
Exporter.
exporter. Yeah,
Wow. That's
it's kind of cool.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
All right. So let's go to this other question. Okay.
Hmm.
So before this live, we were talking about giving ourselves permission to be sad.
Yes.
What role do you think our mental and emotional health plays in our ability to be successful as young professionals? And specifically successful in the workplace?
Okay. Um, okay, hold on, repeat the question one more time. Because like
Okay.
it,
Hmm.
it brought up a lot of feelings and then I kind of dissociated. So
Okay. Okay. So before this live, we talked about giving ourselves permission to be sad.
yes.
What role do you believe our mental and emotional health plays in our ability to be successful as young professionals?
Okay. So your mental and emotional health is everything. It affects everything. It you in order to you can be successful and be a very sad person. Obviously, we've seen that in like a lot of like CEOs, CFOs, celebrities. You know what I mean? That sometimes those things end really badly. Um, but in order to really have that true fulfillment, that true joy, the true like meaning and purpose, you do need to have your mental health. I wouldn't say healed and perfect because nobody's ever like fully, you know what I mean? Like I've worked through all my trauma, by this age. Like that's really impossible because our lives are ever changing. There's always new experiences and new things to have to work through, and there's some things that we'll always be processing, but at least having an understanding of some of the pain that you've gone through, um, some of the stuff that you may need to work on, or are like in the process of, or just like acknowledgement of some of like this tough stuff that's happened. um, I feel that's everything, that it's gonna really affect like your everyday, your life, your God, such a loaded question. I mean, I can speak, you know, like like on a personal level, like I'm still like working through a lot of childhood trauma. Even as a therapist, that's someone that's supposed to have all the answers, and I don't always. And sometimes feelings come up for me in my career, and I have to work through things, you know. Um, but having that self awareness that there's stuff that needs to that will come up, stuff that you need to process, sometimes stuff that you need to like table it for a little bit, because it may be too much. But just having some real life like awareness, some live like in vivo awareness of like your mental and emotional health, and prioritizing your mental and emotional health, and like doing things at least weekly or monthly in order to like to heal, to grow, to just feel good. Anything, just things for you. I think that helps you a lot in your professional life and personal life.
I agree. And we're actually going to ask a question later about DIY
Mm-hmm.
therapy, and what are some of those things that we can actually do at home to kind of work through some of our trauma. And but what I was hearing you say um, was really about taking the time to do the healing, and you were talking about self-awareness. So us making that choice, right? We have to make that choice within ourselves to do the healing, right? And then we have to go and do the healing. Even though it's like any wound, maybe you're never completely healed, or it takes time, right? But giving ourselves permission to take time and sticking with it. And this idea that what heard a lot when I was in the corporate world is, you know, bring your best self to work, but
Mm-hmm.
don't bring your full self to work. And
Mm-hmm.
I always challenge that because if you're working 8 hours a day at a job, right? You think about it, you have 24 hours. You're supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
sleeping for 8 of those hours, right? Supposed to be,
Yeah.
right? So that leaves you 16 hours, right? So then 8 of those hours you spend at work, and probably the other 8 hours you spend detoxing from work and getting ready for work.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a lot of ways, you become a lot closer and you spend more time with the people at work than you do at home.
Absolutely.
And so it's impossible to separate or to detach, right? My emotional life at home from my emotional life at work, or my emotional life at work from my emotional life at home. And we try so hard to create this separation.
Of course.
And, I do think there is some validity to, consciously making a choice when I'm cutting work off, I'm going at home, I'm being with my family. But at the same time, I think it's unrealistic to think that if I'm having a tough time at home, that when I go to work, I'm just going to be this totally other person who, it's almost, it's almost, you know, like we're kind of expected to be emotionless in a lot of ways, right? Or the
Mm-hmm.
only emotion that's acceptable is happiness,
Of
right?
course.
Or
Of course.
acceptance,
Yeah.
or right, or
Neutral,
agreement.
or just like neutral, like just be a body.
Yeah. And so I think what's happening a lot in these workplaces is that we have managers who lack that emotional intelligence, who are unable, right? Who are unable to kind of see past the transactional conversations to
Mhm.
really saying the person that's sitting in front of me is a real person with a real life,
Mhm.
and how can I support them, right, in their fullness and their wholeness, so that they can get back to a place where they can be productive and they can be creative, right? But
Mhm.
if I'm here and I'm struggling with, a breakup at home, or a situation with my family, or I'm just tired, that's going to impact my performance at work. And I think what's missing a lot in the workplace, because we promote people because we say, okay, you're doing a really great job sometimes, right? We're doing a great job. Usually it's because, hey, I like you, we have a really good relationship, right?
Mhm.
But we promote people based on these things, but how often are promotions being made, or how often are assessments being made on how emotionally intelligent you are, and
Mhm.
how well you can um how well you can extend yourself with compassion and other people with compassion. And I think that's so important. I remember my therapist, I'm going to say this and then we'll continue. But I remember my therapist from many moons ago. I was explaining a situation that I was having with one of my managers with her. And she looked at me and she said, well, how can you expect this person to give you compassion when they're probably not even giving them themselves that kind of compassion? And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that makes a lot of sense. Right? Like, if so that made me think about my relationship with myself, and where I'm really hard on myself when make a mistake, and it made me question, do I extend that same compassion to other people when they make mistakes? And if I don't even extend that to myself, then how can I expect that I can extend that to someone else, right?
Mhm.
So I do think it's so important to start with you first, and
Mhm.
then go from there.
Absolutely. Um, that also you've also touched on the importance of having or choosing the right job that has like a very healthy work environment. Um, I've had a lot of different jobs, and where I work now, for the first time in a long time, I have an amazing manager that really, really prioritizes my mental health. And if I'm not well, there is no pressure to perform.
Hmm.
And that doesn't come very often. And you may need to go through a lot of jobs to end up finding that. Some people may never find that and then they become that person, you know, that they need for other people. They become that boss, you know. Um, I see that in you, you know. I know you, and I know that you have worked in a lot of places that haven't always treated you fairly. Um, and that has pushed you out of your comfort zone and made you go to where you are now, you know, becoming your own boss, you know, creating that healthy work environment that you so desperately craved.
Mhm. Man, you said some really powerful things there, and I that just kind of goes back to something that I always say, which is, if there seemingly is no path, we create the path.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so let's get back to our Kepler planet,
Oh,
because
right.
you've guessed where I'm at. So this is getting embarrassing, okay?
No,
Because
it's not. It's really not.
this also happened to me during our last show, where I just, my geography clear well, I guess my outer space geography is just not on point. I need to do some more research. And what's funny is I actually have a book on planets.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually have a book on planets. Okay, so I remember saying that I was gonna ask a specific question.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is a Kepler planet.
Yes.
It ends in B,
Mhm.
and there's something about a mushroom that's related
Mhm.
to this planet.
Yeah.
It was founded after the 2000s or in
Yes.
the 2000s, so it's
Yes.
a more recently discovered planet.
Yes.
And
I'm gonna give you the distance. It's from Earth. Okay.
okay.
It's 1,402 light years from Earth.
Why do I feel like the answer is so much further away than it was before? Like, I'm just 1,402 light years away.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. So I had a really good question, but it's not coming to me right now in this moment. So I'm gonna. Is it a single digit Kepler?
No.
Is it a double digit Kepler?
No.
Is it a triple digit Kepler?
Yes.
Okay, it's a triple digit Kepler that ends in the letter B.
Yes.
So I see a couple of options here. Okay, and I have an idea. I think I might know which one it is.
Okay. Let's do it.
Ah, maybe it's not. That doesn't say 1,400 light years. It says 1,800. Okay. So, is it Kepler 452b?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
It is. Yes. It's, so this planet is crazy. So it's inhabited by mushrooms. So like mushrooms um are a big part of like the way like animals decompose. The mushrooms in what they've said is that like mushrooms also kind of can like hunt for like animals and stuff too. Like it's like these mushrooms are like evolved. And then with this whole The Last of Us stuff that's coming on, I'm like,
Yes.
oh no, oh no.
It's real. So
Yeah.
we found life on this planet.
Um, I would it's all estimate, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's the planet that's the most like Earth. In the documentary that I saw, there were a lot of estimates or of like or guesstimates of like animals that they would um you know think that they would exist on the planet, and a lot of these animals are like adorably freaky.
Adorably freaky.
Yeah, I'll have to find the documentary and I'll send it to you, but it's really good.
Netflix, Hulu.
Jeez, it's because I have YouTube TV.
Oh, me too.
So oh, okay, so that's where I saw it. So I'll have to
Okay.
see which channel it was on.
I'm just gonna Google it. I'll find it.
Oh, it's so good. Like,
Okay.
it's just fascinating.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions. Are you able
Okay.
to stick with me for a little
Of
bit longer?
course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have like three really good questions, but I also want to keep us it's hard.
Let's just jump into it.
Let's
Let's
jump
let's
in. Tell
let's
us
just
about a time when you had to unlearn a childhood belief and learn a new way of thinking. What was the challenge? How did you approach it? And what was the result?
mm, okay. Um, so in the Latino culture, it's very, very, and I'm sure this goes for like a lot of other cultures too, but I can only speak to mine. Um, just not sharing things, just kind of dusting things under the rug, at waking up the next day acting like, nothing happened. And something that I've unlearned a lot in my adult life, functioning in a healthy work environment, functioning in um, a healthy home environment that I've created with my partner, is just talking about things, like actually sharing your feelings, and um, doing that not just at home but at work too. If something bothers you, say it. If something isn't right, say it. And just self-expression is something that, well, lack of self-expression is something that I had to, unlearn. And as an adult, where I strive to like put myself in the most, you know, enriching and healthy environments, you know, having the ability to express myself with my friends, my partner, my workplace. That's something that I never thought was allowed. I never was taught that that was allowed as a kid. And as an adult, it's incredibly it's emotional. you know I I never thought I'd be here. I didn't know that this was even possible to exist in such a way,
Hmm.
um, because it wasn't taught to me. It's something I had to unlearn, um, and it's freaking amazing.
I love that you said that because communication is the one for me, which is similar to expression. I think people might find that funny because they're like, "Oh, you're a communication professional. Like you do this for a living," and it's true. But I think there is something different when we talk about communication as an expression, and there's so much around how to. Well, one, let's not even talk about the how yet. Let's just talk about realizing or having the awareness that I'm having an emotion, being able to name what that emotion is,
Mhm.
and then being able to express that emotion in a way that is productive.
Yeah.
Right, like there's a lot going on, right? At first I have to even have awareness that I'm having the
Yes.
emotion. I remember when I went to I was in an outpatient program, and I was seeing a psychiatrist, and they're like, "Yeah, you have anxiety." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even realize all this time I've been struggling with this emotion, and there's
Mhm.
a name for it."
Yeah.
Right? I had
Mhm.
no awareness of that, right? And
Mhm.
so once I knew that there was a name for it, now every time I felt that emotion, I was like, "Oh, that's anxiety.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
anxiety," right? Whenever I had these ruminating thoughts, "Oh, that's anxiety."
Yeah, it's validating to your experience to know there's a name for it, right?
True. But then, right? So now awareness. Okay, I struggle with anxiety. Then being able to recognize it when it comes up.
Mhm.
Now being able to express that what I'm feeling is I'm feeling anxious, right?
Mhm.
And how do I express that feeling of anxiousness in a way that is productive and that the other person on the other end can accept that,
Mhm.
right? Because we know communication is a two-way street. It's
Mhm.
not just what you say, it's also how what you're saying is being perceived.
Yeah.
So in a way where they can accept that, and then we can come to a healthy resolution together, right?
Yes.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Yes. And also acknowledging that you may not always express yourself in a healthy way either. And that's okay too. You know, Especially if you're struggling with something like anxiety, where it can kind of take over sometimes. I also struggle a lot with anxiety, and it doesn't always come out pretty. But being able to have that healthy communication with those around you, and for you to be able to come back after that, be like, oh, I was kind of nasty, or oh, that came out not the way I wanted it, and getting to express yourself, getting to communicate, in a way
Mhm.
that's productive.
Yeah, I think that's what you just said about giving yourself permission. And I think we've talked a lot about giving ourselves permission on this live, but
Mm,
like giving yourself permission to not always get it right, right?
yeah,
And we can kind of
absolutely.
keep coming back to that and telling yourself it's okay. Like telling that inner child, it's okay. I hear you. I'm here for you. Like
Mhm.
I see you, right? And
Oh, yeah,
acknowledging that it's such a powerful effect.
absolutely. I love that, we're touching a lot on like inner child because um a big part of our childhood is like getting corrected on things, being punished for things, learning, and um no shade on the way that we were raised, but it's a different time now than it was then, and then it was for the generation that like raised the generation that raised us. Um, there's just so much more realization. There's so much more acceptance of feelings. There's so much more of like, oh, you did that wrong. That's okay. Let's talk about it. You
Mhm.
know, and that's such a new thing.
Mhm.
And as an adult now, or whatever age you are now, giving yourself the permission to like just acknowledge that, when you were corrected as a kid, when you were, disciplined, man, that was really sad, but you couldn't always be sad because that was the way that things were done,
Right.
and like all those feelings that you had as a kid that like you kind of had to put away, they're still inside, and they have to come up. They have to come out at a certain point, and giving yourself permission to experience everything that, or to feel everything in its full intensity, not like putting it, tucking it away, there's a really controversial book, The Body Keeps Score. A lot of people love it,
Yes.
a lot of people hate it. Um, I think that we shouldn't be super fans of anything. um, but there is a lot of truth to it, um, that can be seen in our sleep cycles. Like,
Mhm.
it's not like if you miss out on a lot of sleep, your body will get that sleep back, whether you want it to or not, like it will. And that applies to a lot of other things, a lot of
Mhm.
other feelings. So, all that hard stuff, all those corrections and feelings that you didn't get to like really feel when you were little, or you didn't get to talk to anybody about. Maybe you did feel them, but you didn't get to like really talk about them with anybody. As an adult, give yourself that permission. And you may need some supervision, like going to a therapist, and you may need that like professional guidance. And that's wonderful also. I think that that's excellent. Um, but you don't necessarily need to go to therapy to like, give yourself that permission. Um, it's just, it can be as simple as a moment at home, because healing is not, it doesn't always happen in the four doors or the four walls of like a therapy office. That's why I love like community work. A lot of what I do is I give a lot of homework to my clients, I'm like, do this when I'm not around because it doesn't really count when I'm around. Do it on your own because I'm only here for a short amount of time.
Mhm.
Practice these things, apply these things in real life. It counts more when you're not here with me because that's when you're really experiencing everything. And like, um, that you'll be able to take this with you when I'm no longer here with you.
Mhm. And you have such a calming, soothing voice, by the way. I'm like,
Oh, thank you.
okay. So what you said beautifully transitions us into one of our final two questions. And I'm actually going to mash up the first question. So, you already touched on this a little bit. We talked about meditation.
Mm,
What are some practical things that young professionals can do at home to practice vulnerability with themselves, to basically DIY therapy, right? And then the
mhm.
second part of that is if there are young professionals who are watching this today and they've been thinking about therapy and they've been on the fence, or maybe they've done therapy before and it didn't quite work out, what would you say to them? So the first part is what can we do for ourselves at home, and then the other part is if we're on the fence about therapy, what would you say?
Okay. Something you can do at home is just be gentle with yourself. We are often so hard on ourselves. We are our biggest critic, always. From the moment you wake up and look in the mirror, you are judging yourself. You're criticizing yourself, unless you have like the perfect self esteem, which is non existent. Just be gentle. Just be kind to yourself. Be more gentle and kind. Give more attention to your breath. You know, inhaling exhaling is as important as inhaling because you're taking the breath in, and then when you let it out, you're letting it out, like whatever feelings that you have, whatever emotions that you want to like process or maybe put aside for the moment. Just being gentle with yourself, more gentle with yourself, and giving more attention to your breath are two really, really simple things that you can do at home that kind of force you to slow down
Mhm.
because breathing is, we do the subconscious. But when you give that attention to your breath, of just like simple, like breathing in and breathing out, you know, it just makes you slow down a little bit. And we are in such a fast paced life, especially if you live in the city, things are just, you're on a schedule constantly, So I would say that those are two very simple things that you can do at home. Um, and then what was your next question?
The follow-up question is, if I so we talked about the DIY therapy, but now if I want to see a or if I've been on the fence about seeing a therapist, or maybe I've been to therapy and it didn't quite work out, what would you say?
Okay, I'm going to share something that was shared with me while I was in grad school by one of my teachers slash mentors. I remember she said that therapy or finding a therapist is a lot like dating. And you're not always gonna find, the sharpest tool or the brightest crayon in the crayon box the first time around. Not all therapists are made equally. Um, and not each flavor is,
Sure.
fit for everyone. What works for someone may not work for someone else. Um, you know, so just being comfortable with that and like exploring like lots of like if you've already had a therapist and didn't work out, like try someone that's the opposite. Try, and also something that I didn't know going into therapy is that there's lots of different styles of therapy. Um, and so there's like, very like strict, like, this person gives you homework, you do like worksheets, Turing sessions. There's more like relaxed, like, more go with the flow. Like there's lots, there's like there are hundreds of different types of therapists, and different styles. And so just continuing to explore, because if you really want to do the work and you really feel like you need like guidance with that, then for sure pursue therapy with that. and find your right therapist.
Mm,
Um, and for someone that is on the fence of, and the fence, I get it. Therapy is expensive, and the therapy that's offered through your insurance isn't always the best. So I get that too. And it may not, if you're on the fence and you're just, it may not be the right time, because you have to be ready also. You have to like give yourself permission to be vulnerable during therapy. And if you're on the fence, then maybe wait till you feel like you're very motivated to, or just keep exploring with yourself. Like, why am I on the fence? Why do I feel like reservations? And explore that. Sorry, that was my dog.
I heard Dollar. Yeah.
she, she had to make herself known. Um, yeah, it's just it's really hard. It's really, really hard, especially if you've already had like a really good therapist.
Mm,
And then say they retire. Like I had like a phenomenal therapist when I was like 19 and then she retired, and nobody can measure up to her still, even for me. And I'm just like, oh, it's so hard. So um don't compare yourself to other people either. Say your friends going to therapy and it's like going amazing. You're like, oh, like maybe I should go too because they're going. No, you're on your own path. You're on your own journey. You've lived an entirely different life than that person. No one's lived the life that you've lived. So just do what feels natural and right to you in that moment.
mm,
Or you can try it and man, I'm not ready yet. That's okay. Doesn't matter. Like there's no like there's no direct path to wellness and healing. It's different for everybody.
mm. And I love what you're saying because I find so much of it to be true. What I found that works best for me in terms of therapy, because there are different types of therapy. I didn't realize that until I
Mhm.
went into outpatient, is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mhm.
Man, that changed my literally changed my life because I
Mhm.
could see clearly. I'm very systematic and I like
Yep.
to see how things are related and interconnected. And I was like, oh, my
Mhm.
actions are connected with my thoughts, which are connected to my feelings. And the
Mhm.
feeling part is the part that I really need to work on because I'm having a hard time even acknowledging my feelings or even being able to identify them. Right.
Mhm.
And then the thoughts, oh man, that makes so much sense. Like I ruminate all the time. That's anxiety. Right. And like seeing those connections saying, man, if I just change my behavior, I can change my feelings. If I change my feelings, I can change my thoughts. If I change my thoughts, I can change my feelings. Oh my goodness, this is just amazing. I didn't realize like that
Yes.
was it for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then what you were saying about how when you're when you're ready, because I've worked with two phenomenal therapists, but they've played very different roles in my life and they were at very different times of my life. Right? Like my first therapist, I don't even call her a therapist. I call her my spiritual guide because
Mhm.
she helped me through a transition from corporate, and it was during COVID, from corporate
Mhm.
to through unemployment, basically, right?
Mhm.
Like she helped me move from California back home to Chicago.
Mhm.
She helped me through a difficult relationship that I was having. Like like that
Mhm.
was her purpose in my life, right?
Yeah.
Was to usher me through this phase. And then
Mhm.
once I got there, it was I didn't do therapy for a while because I was in a different space. And
Mhm.
then some time passed and I decided to go back to therapy because I said, okay, I feel okay. And when I went back to therapy, I wasn't in crisis like I was the first time.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I feel good, but I want to make sure that I'm still grounded. And I could feel myself becoming ungrounded. I wanted to reground myself. And so
Mhm.
that's when I sought out that therapist and she helped me through that process of regrounding. So I think part of it too is having what we talked about earlier is also a sense of self-awareness about like what I need in this moment, right?
Mhm.
And then giving ourselves permission to seek it out because
Yep.
but I think it's a lot harder when you're in crisis
Absolutely.
because I didn't did I no, I did seek out therapy when I was in crisis. I did seek it out, and then that what actually led me to the outpatient program, which was what
Mhm.
changed my life. So,
And your
sometimes
mental.
yeah, sometimes unfortunately it feels like that's what it takes is it takes a crisis or it takes something really hard to push you in the direction you need to go.
Sure.
But as you're saying is give yourself permission. If it doesn't feel like it's the right time, then it's not the right time,
Yeah,
right?
and that's okay.
And that's okay. Okay. So final question for tonight um, is, and this is a question we ask all of our guests, which is how would you describe success?
Um, I would describe success as fulfillment. I think if you just feel fulfilled, if you feel joy, but fulfillment the most, if you feel like whatever you're doing fills you up, you know, gives you that energy to keep going, then that's success. And that can be measured in work or maybe starting a family, or anything, Um, as long as you feel fulfilled, then you're rich.
Hmm. Wealth is a feeling.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, success is measured differently for many different people. Some people measure success with their bank account, some
Mhm.
people measure success with their status, but for me, it's really about fulfillment.
Hmm. Well, thank you, Sandy, for joining us on this show. You have brought so many incredible, profound insights to the table. And I think we can all leave and really think about and consider the conversation tonight and how it applies to our own lives. And I know I'm going to rewatch this
Same.
and meditate on it and breathe on it because I think these are important conversations to have, and so often we feel so alone, right? And so because we feel alone, we don't know where to start with those conversations. But I think you've given us a lot of great places to start with that inner child and saying it's okay. And it's okay if it's not time yet. And it's okay if you don't know everything. And it's okay to seek out the answers. Um, and so thank you for coming on the show and giving us permission to be gentle and kind and compassionate with ourselves.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me and asking me these questions. I feel very thankful for our friendship. I feel thankful to be in a position where I can contribute to the game show that you're
Yes.
hosting. Um, and I'm thankful for you, just for your existence.
Mm. I love you.
I love you.
All right. Well, with that, we will sign off.
Okay.
All
Have a
right.
great
Good night.
night.
Peace.
Bye.